quickly move forward towards our next session coming up your way. Big question, what's ahead for biotech? Another wave or a low tide? This evening, we will be having Paul Perreault, who will be joining us to share his thoughts, the CEO and Managing Director of CSL, having been appointed as a CEO and MD in 2013. Since then, CSL has grown to become the world's third largest biotechnology company with more than 25,000 employees providing life-saving products to more than 100 countries. And Paul brings with him a wealth of experience of more than 30 years in the global healthcare industry. So ladies and gentlemen, time to move forward towards our next discussion. The big question coming your way, what's ahead for biotech? Let's hear it from none other than Paul Perreault.
Hello everyone. It's my pleasure to virtually join you today. I hope you and your families are safe and well. First, I want to acknowledge the enormous contribution India has made in battling the pandemic. India threw its manufacturing might behind the vaccination effort and has been one of the largest producers globally. I believe you will find my outlook aligns strongly with your biotech and healthcare sectors, specifically that we have shown what potential we have, and now we must keep driving innovation. But before I expand on that, a bit about CSL. We are a leading global biotech company focused on treating people stricken with rare and serious diseases, including hemophilia, bleeding disorders, and immune deficiencies, as well as influenza vaccines to protect human health. We have been driven by our promise to save lives since our start in Australia more than 100 years ago. Today, we provide life-saving medicines to patients in more than 100 countries and employ more than 25,000 people. And as I remind our people, the medicines we produce are not discretionary. They are essential to keeping patients healthy and in many instances alive. This is the basis of our promise, and I'm proud that we have been able to continue delivering on that promise the last 2 years in the face of this global pandemic. CSL invests more than $1 billion in research and development each year. We have several exciting R&D programs underway in each of our 6 therapeutic areas, which include immunology, hematology, respiratory, cardiovascular metabolic, and transplant and influenza. Some highlights include potentially the first ever gene therapy for patients with hemophilia B called etranacogene. CSL 112, a potentially transformative treatment now in phase 3, designed to reduce the risk of recurrent cardiovascular events following a heart attack. And a next-generation self-amplifying mRNA for seasonal and pandemic influenza, known as sa-mRNA, just to name a few. In addition to our CSL Behring and Seqirus businesses, we're excited to announce in December the acquisition of V4 Pharma, a global specialty pharma company headquartered in Switzerland with leadership positions in nephrology, dialysis, and iron deficiency. V4 enhances our global therapeutic leadership positions, innovation capabilities, scale, and our growth potential. We look forward to welcoming V4 to the CSL family in the middle of 2022, pending regulatory approvals. CSL is the organization that I lead, but now I want to talk about the global environment in which many of us are operating in. The term unprecedented has been thrown around a lot during the pandemic, most often in reference to the hardships that communities from Boston to Bangalore have endured. While I recognize the enormous challenges the world has faced, today I want to focus on the positive side of this adjective as it relates to the future of human health. You see, this ecosystem, patients, governments, businesses, and research, has undergone a formidable change right in front of our eyes. While it is easy to dwell on the negatives, we must celebrate progress. Let's look at a few examples. I believe the time to act is now, building the adaptability muscle further and not taking the easy path. This would be to, like a spring, bounce back to our comfortable pre-pandemic ways. Returning to normal is something we hear often, but it's not really where we want to be. Returning to normal will stifle progress and even harm our future. We must harness this momentum to help tackle some of the most difficult challenges we're yet to face. The makings of it are there. We must form stronger and better partnerships. We must continue to reduce impediments within our own processes and in the regulatory and policy environment so as to fast-track approvals for vital treatments. The political altercations will always be there, but to truly capture the good from this pandemic, even our elected officials must think beyond their partisanship. We must continue to invest in and incentivize more research and development. We must keep flexing that adaptability muscle, not only for businesses, but for our families and personal well-being too. Secondly, we've seen regulatory approvals of new vaccines fast-tracked at speed, a process that normally takes years and years. And while many worried this was at the sacrifice of safety, it wasn't. Those approvals were a result of prioritization, reduction of bureaucracy, and importantly, digitization of old processes. These are lessons learned we must carry forward beyond the pandemic. Finally, throughout the pandemic, we've experienced a tremendous level of collaboration and coordination across our industry, even with some of our competitors. For instance, CSL co-founded with Takeda the COVID-19 Plasma Alliance, a first ever collaboration of 11 plasma companies across 13 countries and 5 continents to develop a potential plasma-derived hyperimmune therapy for treating COVID-19. While a phase 3 clinical trial of the potential therapy did not meet its endpoints, the collaboration of competitors showed what is possible in the name of science and the protection of human health. I was a psychology major, and I remember a quote from Abraham Maslow, who is famous for his hierarchy of needs concept. He said, "What you can be, you must be." And I think this sums up the moment we find ourselves in now. We have proven the remarkable things we can do, so we must do more. A new type of challenge sits in front of us as the world continues to emerge from the depths of the pandemic. So, how does the human health ecosystem keep up with the lofty expectations now put on it by its performance during the pandemic? How do we keep this momentum going? How do we take what we've learned and adapt it to future challenges? How do we provide opportunities for the bright young minds that now want to be scientists instead of investment bankers? I don't intend to solve all of this here today, but I do want to look at 3 areas where I think we can make great strides. I'd like to start with innovation, because I think it is one of the most important and best parts of our industry. If you're not consistently innovating in biotech, then you're planning your exit. What makes innovation so good is because it is so rewarding. And what makes it so rewarding is because it is so important to get it right. For any chance of success, you need multiple shots on goal across the full spectrum of research and development. For every success story we hear about, there are multiple failures. And it can take a long time to realize these failures. But learning from failure translates into future success. During the pandemic, we actually innovated the innovation process itself. Things have sped up, more attention and additional resources have been directed to medical science. Take, for example, the FAST Grants program in the US. This was an idea by a fintech CEO who quickly raised $50 million and distributed it quickly to various scientists. Many of those early ideas formed that basis of what we use today, such as rapid COVID self-tests. At CSL, we are catalyzing a similar response by investing in incubator hubs all over the world, from Melbourne, Australia, to Boston, Massachusetts, to Bern, Switzerland. This model relies on residents. Their experience often lies purely within the lab. We provide facilities to them, but we also share our know-how to help translate science from the lab bench to commercial aspects of medicine's development that may be new to them. Think in terms of taking science from the bench to bedside. This model has proven successful in many other industries, such as tech, and there is no reason why it can't drive the next round of medical research breakthroughs. The second area that I see great progress for is what I call the patient-participant experience. Let me start with the patient experience, as well as, in the case of our CSL plasma business, the donor experience. For background, our CSL plasma business operates one of the world's largest and most sophisticated plasma collection networks, with more than 300 plasma collection centers in the United States, Europe, and China. Plasma collected at these facilities is used by CSL Behring for the sole purpose of manufacturing life-saving plasma-derived therapies for patients in more than 100 countries. Plasma donors are reimbursed for their time and face an opportunity cost in coming to our centers. Do they drive an Uber? Do they get a casual job? Or do they do something else with their time? As the gig economy expands, we are competing with more options. One way we are attracting more donors to our centers is improving that experience when they do give up their precious time. We have a massive digital program aimed at consistent experience for our donors. Another part of this is leveraging digital tools. This is an immense opportunity for the biotech sector. I recently saw a stat that showed healthcare behind other industries in terms of the level of digitization. There's no reason why we should be lagging the travel, retail, and financial services industries. Digital tools and the resulting data provides fertile ground for new ways to treat patients in need, and we should be throwing the full weight of our minds behind improving these mechanisms to confront the challenges of the future. We must also consider the participant experience, which relates to clinical trials. Many professionals have typically agreed that clinical trials, strictly controlled research that tests medical treatments, should be easier and more convenient for participants. Well, the pandemic gave our industry the impetus to initiate what we call decentralized trials. These reduce the burden on trial participants and can include remote monitoring, video visits, and mobile nursing care, which reduce the need to go to research sites for all of the appointments and lab tests. Instead of going to a trial site to pick up medicine, the company conducting the trial can ship it to the participant's home. More efficient trials will translate into faster and more data-rich developments. That can only be a good thing for our sector and, most importantly, the patients. Finally, casting my optimistic eye on the pandemic, another upside has been the world's attention that has been rightfully focused on the power of science. As a result, many more curious young minds are choosing to turn their attention to epidemiology or biostatistics rather than the more traditional paths. At the same time, the economic imperative to invest in science and STEM education has been made abundantly clear. I remain confident that science will lead us out of this pandemic. A crisis breeds trailblazers and ingenuity, and the acceleration of solutions to treat and prevent COVID-19 has been truly inspirational. The confluence of attention and investment will lead to the next generation of problem solvers, or as we like to call them at CSL, promise keepers. Our nearly 2,000 scientists who have been inspired by the power of medical science, combined with a deep passion to deliver on their promise to patients. Companies like CSL have a role to play in this, and it is why we partner and collaborate with academic institutions all over the world. I would like to finish today by saying that when asked to ponder whether the future of biotech was another wave or low tide, I didn't even have to consider the latter option. You see, I am positive about the tidal wave of progress that will build off the lessons learned from the pandemic and power a further resurgence of medical science. This is excellent for the sustainable growth of our industry and, most importantly, patients and human health around the world. Thank you.